Hi everyone, welcome to THT, and today we are finally going to talk about the new expansion Twilight of the Republic, spoilers part 1. And at the end of this video there's going to be a little surprise, so stay tuned until the end. So just remember guys, I'm rating those off my first impression, so obviously I haven't played with any of those cards, so don't take my opinion too seriously. We're just here to talk about the card and have a bit of fun and try to think a little bit about how powerful those are in competitive, at least in my own humble opinion. Just to give you a heads up on how I rate these things, I decided to go for a bit of a more fun and kind of vague rating. So first one is the little girl, so I'm not excited with the card. I think it's either bad or it's going to be very niche. The Fry is kind of the not sure. The card has potential, but we need to see the rest of the set to see if it's any good. So it's really in comparison with the rest of cards that are very synergy based are difficult to evaluate in a vacuum. So this is why I have my Fry for. And then we have the thumbs up guy for the good cards. So cards I'm really relatively confident that they're going to be good and are likely going to see play. And then finally the amazing. The card seems insane and could be meta defining. So a card that I'm very excited about. So without further ado, let's go into the first card here. This guy is basically a 2/3 if you can get coordinate. I'm not gonna, as usual, I'm not gonna read those cards. I'm just put them on the screen, so you can read them if you don't know about them. Basically, so my opinion about coordinate is that coordinate it's relatively difficult to have 3 or more units on the field. Because obviously in Stars Limited every single unit is effectively a removal that can be used to trade with your opponent. So it's relatively easy to kind of trade up in a way that prevents your opponent from ever having coordinate. Obviously in this set it's going to be different because I think there's going to be a lot more ways to put multiple units on the field with one card. With that being said, I still believe that most of the units would have very low stats, would be very easy to kill either by trading up or simply just using a barrage to kind of kill everything. So, in my opinion, coordinate seems to be, for coordinate to be good, it really needs to give a very, very powerful effect for it to be worth it, because it's relatively difficult to have 3 or more units on the board. Obviously, with this expansion, it might be easier, but we'll see how it goes. So for now, for this card, I'm personally in a vacuum. I'm not very excited about this card. It's just a 2/3 for 1. Is okay, but the payoff here for having 3 units on the board is really very small. Obviously, it's a cheap unit, so it's easier to have multiple of them. But I think that here the payoff is simply just not really that good. The card is absolutely abysmal if you don't get coordinate. So personally, why would you play like a 2/3 conditional when you can simply just play a 2/3 for 1 that does exist in the game? That we have plenty of. They have a downside of having the bounty and stuff, but the bounty downside is really not that big of a deal, in my opinion. And at least they are 2/3 right at the gate, and they also have an upside. So there's one that has restore 1, and there's one that has saboteur. So I would just rather play that than just a 1/2 that's very conditionally will get a +1/+1. Next we got Hellfire Tank. Can't relatively evaluate because there's nothing like this in the game, so you can basically defeat your own unit to make it cheaper. So this card can go down to 4. A 4 for 7/6 can sound appealing, but you have to defeat 2 of your own units. Obviously, you're gonna have plenty of 1/1 tokens to defeat, but it still requires like a pretty big setup, and a pretty big setup. I'm personally don't the reason why I decided to rate this card as a not excited is because I think they are just better in that category. Like they are just better options. It seems like to me. It seems like there's just simply just better options. Basically, if you are playing a card to set up 2 units and then you play this card afterward, you effectively spent 2 entire turns to put the 7/6. So yes, you got the 7/6 early, but you spend 2 entire turns to be able to do so, and if you simply just got defeated, you are down with a lot of cards. So I'm not excited. On this one, I really hesitated between a Fry and a little girl. Like it's really in between. But for now, it seems like there's just better options for those kind of like exploit cards than this. Okay, Battle Droid Escort. I think it's gonna be the enabler that's gonna enable you to get all those exploit cards. It's in a vacuum, it's terrible. Just a 1/1 that gives you another 1/1 that gives you another 1/1. Those is a bit. Obviously, the entire point of this is to simply just be exploited so you can get your big guys. So I read this as a fry. I don't know if it's gonna be any. I don't know if this archetype is gonna be any good. I found this to be relatively easy to counter. In multiple ways, you can either very easily defeat the tokens themselves to prevent the exploit from happening, or you can simply defeat the unit that comes out, and then you do insane value, card advantage, tempo, all at once. So in theory, this doesn't seem to be very competitive in my opinion, but I'm open-minded. We'll see how it goes, and definitely is going to be some enablers for this battle droid Discord. This seems to be one of them. So for now, I'm giving this a fry. Next, Prisoner of War. So capture mechanics have been very weak in the previous set, and I believe that this set does not make I think overall captures cards have been widely underpowered. I think maybe the design team has overestimated the power of capture, at least in constructed. And Prisoner of War, of course, follows the same kind of pattern, follows the same logic. It's very situational because it doesn't work on leader, doesn't work on vehicle. Vehicle is almost half of the units in the game. All the space units are vehicle almost, plus of course a bunch of ground units. So yeah, it doesn't work on this. It's expensive. It costs 4. Obviously, it's a capture, so it's not definitive. You do get battle droids from what you get, but overall, I think this card is just not very exciting. For the same reason as the capture cards in set 1 in set 2 are not very exciting. We got Plo Koon. Okay, if you can get coordinate, this card's quite good. 6 for 5 ambush is really solid. It's rate 3. It's not +3 attack, but it's still good. And it's also a force unit, which is in the Republic, which I think is going to be very relevant in the set, and force is always very relevant. So overall, I think this card is okay, but the coordinate is obviously something that's going to be quite important. You need to have 2 more other units when this comes into play. That's not going to be easy. So I give this a fry. I'm kind of like on the fence. I'm not sure how good this will be. Separatist Commando. This can be, I'm relatively confident saying this card is not going to be amazing, because we already have a card like this with the Insurgent. I think it's a 1/4. If you have another aggression unit, he has rate 2. It's basically the same card, but it's a 1/4 instead of a 2/3. And instead of a Separatist, it requires a red card. And this card doesn't see a lot of play. It is widely admitted that the downside of having another unit alongside is just very, very annoying. And if the other card doesn't see play, then I don't see this card seeing play. Especially, you gotta understand that obviously as every new set comes out, the power level of decks becomes bigger and higher. The card becomes more and more powerful, and the power level just goes up. The game naturally power creeps as we're getting more expansion, which means that a card that might have seen played if there were only 1 or 2 sets is definitely not going to see any play with 3 sets. Like it's that's just the way it goes. So that's why I'm going to be more skeptical as we get more and more expansion. I'm going to be more selective on the card I think are going to be good. Then we got Aura Sing. This card is pretty great in draft, but I think in constructed it's just a little bit slow. You pay 7. I mean, you do have an immediate impact because it kind of has Sentinel, where every time you attack your base, you get to ready that unit, and that's pretty big. But then, of course, it needs to be interesting in attacking your base. If your opponent attacks your base and just kills you, then it doesn't matter that you ready that unit. So I think this card is going to be great in draft, but I don't think it's going to be good in constructive. It's very expensive. And there's simply a lot of decks that just don't care about it. Like control decks don't care about this. Aggro decks, if they attack you with a killing move, they don't care that you ready your units. Stuff like this, You would rather have like a real Sentinel. Anakin Skywalker. I would have been very excited about this card if it was released in before Pod Amron happens, but Pod Amron is simply just so much better than this. Here's the on attack effect is not only is it conditional, but it's also quite It is not only conditional, it's also not super strong. Paul Dameron has much better, of course, with the same stat line, 6605, in the same colors. If it was in different colors, I would say, okay, this is great. We're gonna get a 6605 in different colors. This could be good. But in the same color as Paul Dameron, I cannot imagine this card seeing play over Paul Dameron. I mean, it is a Jedi, a Force Jedi Republic, so it has relevant keywords trade, but I don't think it's enough to make up for how weaker the ability is compared to Paul Dameron. So, fortunately, not very excited about the Anakin Skywalker starters. Then we got Jesse. Okay, so this card is pretty sweet. It's basically a 5/4 for 3, and it gives 2 battle droids to the opponent, but battle droids on their own really don't do anything. Just 1/1s. They are very attack action intensive if you want to use them. They request tons of action. You're very likely to lose initiative if you really want to use them. So if you're playing against a deck that doesn't really use them, then this card is almost like a 5/4 for 3 with very little downside, which is absolutely insane. This card is really, really strong, in my opinion. So I give this a thumbs up. I think this card is very likely to see play in aggro decks. So 5/4 for 3 is just really, really insane. So obviously there's going to be some matchup in which you're not going to be playing this card, but we're playing Star Wars Limited, so if this matchup where this card is bad, you can just simply resource it. Move on with that General's Blade. I like this card quite a bit. So there are, of course, it's part of the cycle of lightsabers. This one is a bit different because it's not linked to villainy or heroism. You can simply just put it on any Jedi or any Force guard unit. Oh, it actually only works on Jedi. Never mind. I didn't realize that. Yeah, it doesn't work on any Force unit, just specifically on Jedi. Okay, so I like this card quite a bit because I think the on-attack effect is very strong. The next unit you play this phase costs 2 less is very strong because generally speaking in Star Wars Limited you want to attack with your unit first and then you want to play your card. So it does not require you to change the pattern of your play to be able to make it work. Obviously +3/+3 makes it so your unit is going to be more difficult to defeat. So I think this card is decent. I mean, I give it a try. I'm not sure because obviously the +3/+3 for 3 lightsabers have not seen a lot of play, a little bit of play, and with the power creep, it's even less likely that people are going to find room for it. But I think it is possible to, but I think the on-attack effect here is significantly better than the other on-attack effect of the lightsabers, and also the fact that it's available. So yeah, so I think because the on-attack effect is significantly better than giving a thing -2/-2 or the one of fallen lightsabers. So I think this card is actually quite good. But yeah, I'm still giving it a try because it's very niche, only works on Jedi, so that's definitely a limitation. Then we got Gore. So Gore has been by far the biggest payoff for running like an exploit deck. You can make this card cost 6 if you sacrifice 3 units. And then the card is basically, and for 6, the ratio is insane. You get a 7/7 Sentinel Ambush Overwhelm. I think, though, my opinion is if you do exploit 2, when you're sacrificing 2 units to make it cost 8, I think the card is very worth it. If you can make it cost 6, then it's insanely worth it. So I believe that outside of the different exploit card we've seen, it's by far the best one. So I'll give it a thumbs up. Obviously, I don't know if the exploit deck is going to be a thing, but if the exploit deck is ever going to be a thing, I think Gore is definitely going to be part of it. I think if you can make this card cost anywhere between 8 to 6, so sacrificing, if you sacrifice 2, if you sacrifice only 1, that's not worth it. For 10, it's too expensive, but if you sacrifice anywhere from 2 to 3, then it becomes really good. Coruscant Guard is basically a worse version of Cloud Rider, so it's obviously bad. Captain Rex is pretty good at putting a lot of clone troopers, so in a vacuum I don't think it's very strong, but it might be needed for some decks, so I'll give it a try. Because it's one of the best ways to put a lot of clone troopers on the board, like 3 bodies for 1, it's pretty nice. Shakti, so this is kind of Dodonna, but a little bit worse, so it's only a 3/4 instead of 4/4, and it gives +1/+0 into a +1/+1, and friendly token is very narrow compared to Jedi. Jedi is going to be like pretty much, compared to Rebels, +1/+1 to Rebels is pretty much the entire deck, while this one is only for tokens, so it's a lot more narrow, but it does have an on-attack ability that is quite strong, but on-attack abilities are always tricky because you need to actually attack with the unit to actually make it work. So I'll give this a try. I'm not, when I compare this to Dodonna, I'm not very excited. But there's a couple of redeeming qualities for the card. That the on-attack ability is the fact it's a 4th is pretty strong. Consolidation of power. I think this card is very, very bad. Like this would require a very weird combo to actually make this any good. So I mean, it's not impossible that this card might be part of a weird combo that end up being super busted. But in a vacuum, this card is terrible. You basically have to sacrifice a lot of units in order to play something for free, and it costs. The whole point of being able to cheat a unit into play is to not have to pay its cost. But here you have to pay its cost in unit, and then you also have to pay 6 resources. The amount of resources you have to spend just to play a card a little bit earlier than normal is just absolutely insane. And then if the unit get defeated, you've basically lost everything. So, yeah, so yeah, I don't see this card being any good. So next we got General Guardian. Pretty terrible, bad stat line. The ability is pretty relevant because who would want to attack this? The redeeming quality is like it's quite good with Grievous, because Grievous can give Sentinels to unit. But the problem is that this ability is not requires an action, so you play the unit, then you have to give it Sentinel after. By the time you did this, your opponent has already attacked your base. So it's a bit like, so it seems to be, for constructed, it seems to be just way too slow with if you combat this with Grievous. If you don't play Grievous, then the card is really absolutely unplayable. So I don't think it's very good. Royal Guard Attache. So this is, I think it's pretty good. So there's 2 contexts in which I can see this being played. It's being played in a Krennic. It's basically a 3/3 for 2 in a Krennic deck, which is pretty nice. And I think it's quite good in an Obi-Wan deck, because Obi-Wan can heal it, so making it a 2/4 for 2 and then making it a 2/5 for 2 the turn after. For this to be good in Obi-Wan, I think it would require some sort of payoff for healing stuff, so something that says every time you heal something, you get a bonus. Yeah, I think it's situational, but I think in the deck that is good is good, so I'll give it a fry. I give it like I don't know if it can be good, but it seems to. So actually the first Naboo units, by the way, pretty good. Hello there. Iconic line, but unfortunately I don't think it's going to be an iconic card, because while they compare this to Open Fire deals 4 damage, no question asked. This one, the unit has to be entered to play this turn. So this is like a really, really annoying condition. And this condition is kind of a very big deal. So -4/-4 is better than 4 damage, but not by a lot. And the downside of having to choose until they interplay this phase is just such a big deal. So in my opinion, I don't think it's very good. I could be wrong about this, but I simply just don't see this card seeing a lot of play. It's quite expensive. -4/-4 doesn't deal with anything. It doesn't deal with everything. There's quite a few things that it doesn't deal with. And the fact that what really kills this card is the fact that it has to be played on the thing that entered this phase. Obi-Wan Anti-Sprite. So, not a big fan of this card. Not a big fan of this card. The fact that, once again, there's always like a little thing with those cards that makes the card that turns. So 4/6 for 5. Yes, good stats, but there's plenty of other ships that have similar stats that don't see any play. The on-attack ability is only relevant if there's space units on the other side. That's the problem. So I can see a meta where this card could be good if there's like loads of space units or whatever. Then it becomes kind of an immediate impact on the game. 2 damage is enough to deal with a lot of space units, so it's nice. If you have ambush, you can even deal with fire spray, but then you have to lose your Sprite because deal 1 damage to it, so it goes down to 5. But it has relevance straight with Republic and Jedi, but overall I don't think this card is very good. I think it's the fact that it can only deal damage to space unit is just the deal breaker for that card. If it could deal damage to anything, I would be excited about it, but other than this, it's just not that amazing. Then we got a new base called Petronaki Arena. I think this base is terrible. I don't understand. So a lot of people are saying, well, this is for Twin Suns, because Twin Suns you can have 2 leaders. So you get plus 1 bonus for 2 leaders. That's okay, I guess. But in leaders, in Twin Suns, your HP is so important. Like even more so in Twin Suns than in Constructed. Having a base that has lower than 30 HP is such a big liability. So yeah, needless to say that in Constructed, giving plus 1 attack to your leader is absolutely not worth 4 HP on your base. Just to give you... So basically right now I think it's been clear that in order to justify playing a 25 HP base, the ability on the base needs to be incredibly relevant. Not just a little bit relevant, incredibly relevant. We see less and less people are running what used to be considered an auto-include base, an auto-include base, which was Energy Conversion Lab, and that people more and more are staying away from this card because the 5 HP, you really need to justify being able to use for ECR to really make it work. Jeddah City, Surgical Complex virtually don't see any play. Tarkintan is very rare, and those are very powerful abilities. Petronaka Arena is indeed not a powerful ability at all. Yes, it's 26, not 25, but it's not enough. I think this card is absolutely unplayable in Constructed. So, unfortunately, Cunning players are going to be keeping at their 30 HP base, I'm afraid. Republic Commando, pretty horrible card. It's a 2/5 for 3 is not a great stat line on its own. And the Saboteur doesn't make any difference if you get Coordinate, which is quite situational, as I said earlier. Infantry, this card is basically a Cloud City Guard, but a worse version of Cloud City Guard. And Cloud City Guard is already kind of considered like a starter, very basic, very underpowered card. This card is basically a worse version of this because the Sentinel is conditional. And not just a little bit conditional, it's very conditional because 3 units, as I said, it's not going to be that easy to get 3 units in your arena. So... yeah, those guys seems to be incredibly underpowered. Next we got Kraken. So Kraken, so it gives you like a lot of tokens. So maybe in an exploit deck this is going to be playable. The on-attack ability can be quite good. It's very slow because you have to attack. Then to really benefit from it, you need to attack with individual tokens and stuff. But I think this card is, gives this a fry, maybe as fast as token generation. And it's kind of the same idea as Rex, as a dude that can put down units. It's cheaper, obviously, but the units that you get are smaller, of course. But yeah, I think in the sense of the exploit archetypes, Kraken might be the way to go. Then we got a separate super tank. It's very similar to the 7/6 for 8. This one is a 8/8 for 9, but you can exploit up to 3, so you can make this. Cost actually only 3 resources if you exploit 3, and the body is a lot larger. So in my opinion, this is like much better than the 7/6 for 8. It has better stats. You can reduce its price even more, but it requires command. But I believe the exploit deck will be playing command because of Gore. So I think it's must see plays. It's not as good as Gore, but it's better than the 7/6 for sure. So I'll give it a fry. Batch Brothers. So I think if there's going to be any clone Swarm deck, definitely Batch Brothers is going to be part of it. Getting a 2/1 and a 2/2 for 3 is not bad at all. So I think this card is quite good. So I give it the thumbs up. I wonder if this card will see play outside of the Swarm clone deck. Possibly yes. 2 smaller units is usually worse than 1 big unit in Star Wars Limited. So I don't think it's going to see play outside of Swarm deck. But if there's Swarm deck exists, I think this card is definitely going to be part of it for sure. Low Altitude Gunship. Immediate impact on the game, but quite situational. And a decent body with Overwhelm. I gave it a fry because if there's really like a Swarm deck, this could be part of it. The damage ability can deal with both space and ground, which is nice. Yeah, if there's really a Swarm, but because what I'm afraid about with this card is like it's a little bit win more, where if you have a wide board of clones, you're kind of already winning the game. So really, a card that only helps you when you're already winning the game, is that really that good of a card? Probably not. So I'll give it a fry, but it might be a little bit generous. Maybe this card is just not good. Then we got the new R2. R2 is a 2/4 for 2. First of all, 2/4 for 2. It's pretty nice. We haven't had any 2/4 for 2. I mean, we had Val, but Val, she has some pretty strict downsides. R2 here has some upside. It's a Republic, which I think is a relevant trait. And it has a pretty good when played. It allows you to search, discard a card. It's a discard card, draw a card, but draw out to top 3 of your deck, which is pretty nice. I don't think it's insane, but I think it's pretty good. Just a pretty solid card. Don't know exactly where it's going to see play, but for combo deck for sure, because of the quality card that it provides. If there's any sort of like discard effect, like discard shenanigans, this would have been much better in villainy, because the villainy has a lot more to do with the discard pile. But yeah, no, I like the card. Then we got Creative Thinking. The card would have been pretty decent, but unfortunately they added the non-unique clause. I think the fact that it doesn't work on unique unit is a deal breaker for the card. Unique, all the strong cards in the set, in the games, 90% of them are unique. So not being able to exhaust those units is just such a big deal. Echo. Okay, so Echo is one of those other coordinate cards. It's pretty bad, but it turns into a 4/4. This time the coordinate bonus is quite significant. So I give it a fry. If the coordinate deck ever becomes a thing, I believe Echo is going to be part of it. So I give it a fry. Republic Tactical Officer is basically very close to what we've seen with the Fleet Lieutenant or Snowtrooper Lieutenant. Those cards are basically staples. Of course, Snowtrooper Lieutenant not as much, but this for Republic. Republic is going to be everywhere in the set. So I don't think it's as strong as Lieutenant's. 1/4 for 2 is not the same as a 3/3 for 3, but it's cheaper. It's good because it provides you with aggression while also adding more units on the board to turn out the coordinates. So I think this card is quite good. Next we got Kashyyyk Defender. This card is pretty much the 2-drop that the Wookiee deck was looking for. Obviously, if you're playing in Han, which is right now the Wookiee leader, even though he's not a Wookiee, you can play this as a 2/3 for 2 on turn 1 for only 1 resources, so 2/3 for 1, unconditional. And then, if you play this later on in the game, it can heal your unit and deal damage at the same time. I think that's very good. So I think it's good. It's going to require, of course, to be specifically played in a Han deck, but in a young hand deck, I think this guy's quite good. Next we have Knight of the Republic. Very slow, no immediate impact on the game. This is not a card meant for constructed. Belta supplied frigate. The horrible stat for cost. And the Clone Trooper is actually conditional. So no thanks. And now we jump into the leaders. Okay, so how about Ahsoka? So, I don't like Ahsoka. I think our leader's ability is very weak. It's basically +1 attack. It's very reminiscent to IG-88, but it's even more situational than IG-88 because you need... I don't know if it's harder to get 3 units or if it's harder to get more units than your opponent, but it's on the same power level as IG-88's ability in terms of power. So, needless to say, it's very low. And then when she deploys, she's basically 3/6. She might be 5/6. 5/6 for 5 is pretty good, but once again, you need to get the coordinate thing. So it's a force unit. I don't think it's a horrible leader, but I don't think it. When it deploys is quite nice. It's a force 5/6 if you can get the coordinate. But once again, getting the coordinate is not going to be that easy. So I don't think it's very good. I'm not excited about it. Next we got Grievous. I think Grievous is better than Ahsoka. His ability to give droid sentinels can be quite annoying. You can give sentinels to your 1/1s and just keep protecting your base that way. With that being said, the real problem with Grievous, and I personally much prefer Chewbacca's ability, because Chewbacca plays a unit and give it sentinels at the same time. Well, here you have to play the unit and then use the ability to give it sentinels. By the time you did this, your opponent already had managed to attack. It's very action intensive. So yeah, not super excited. Then the 4-8-4-6 is fine. We already have this sort of with Cat Bane. And then the ability gives +1, and you may give a droid on attack. So once again, it is quite slow. You need to attack first to give a droid plus a sentinel. So I don't think it's very good. Let's be honest. Especially in that color combination. Also, those two leaders have the problem of being in the color combination, the most competitive color combination for leaders here. Ashokana, she's going to have to compete with Sabine. And the Grievous, he has to compete with Boba. So, yeah. Good luck with that. Next, we got Obi-Wan Kenobi. And this leader I'm a lot more excited about. First of all, because, of course, this color combination is not nearly as competitive. So there's more room for competition on those. But, of course, so the leader's ability is pretty bad. Healing 1 damage from a unit is just not that strong. But with enough synergies with it, so something that says, do something every time you heal, like something like that, then Obi-Wan can become very powerful. Every time you heal a unit, do something, and then have units like the attached the Naboo unit that comes to really damage. There's something that is potentially powerful here, and having this enabler right on your leaders that is free, I think is quite valuable. So we'll see how that goes for Obi-Wan. Then once he's deployed, he's actually quite good. A 4-7-6 Sentinel is no joke. This is a Sentinel that cannot be bounced by Waylay, by Cunning. So just come here and stay here and be super annoying. I think this is the first Sentinel leader that we've seen. Oh no, never mind. There's a Chewbacca as well, but Chewbacca is a lot more expensive and doesn't have as good as stats. So yeah, I think this leader is quite good. But it's gonna need some sort of payoff around the leader's abilities. That's why I give it a try, because I'm not sure yet. It's gonna require some sort of payoff around the healing units, and I hope they're gonna give him support for it. I hope it's not gonna be one of those leaders where there's only one card in the entire set that synergizes with it, and that's it. I really want to have some support for Obi-Wan. I think it would be very bad for the game if Obi-Wan Kenobi is not playable competitively, in my opinion. Then we got a couple of units that we saw from the special pack. I forgot what it's called, but got Asajj Ventress. I think she's pretty bad. 2-4 with the ability is fairly slow and situational. Then Exploit you can play for cheap, but you have to sacrifice units. I don't think Exploit is very valuable on units that are not that expensive, because you're sacrificing unit on a unit that is not that difficult to kill. So you're losing on card advantage and value like this. Also, most of the Exploit cards are going to be either coming out on turn 1 or turn 2. So that means you can discount Asajj Ventress, but it doesn't allow you to play it earlier. It just allows you to play it for cheaper. So that's just not that good. So I don't see this card being any good. Obviously, this card could be a lot stronger if we find ways to put units on the board for free. If there's a way in the game to put units on the board for free, then Ventress is definitely going to be a lot better, because then suddenly you can play on turn 1. But even then, is it really that good? I'm not so sure. Then we got Darth Maul. So Darth Maul is very reminiscent to Zeb, so a unit that just can attack and kill 2 units at once. The advantage that Zeb had was that he basically did not necessarily die. As a result, actually, he only triggers ability if he survives some of the attacks, so you could attack a unit and then deals 2. Darth Maul has a couple of... while Darth Maul will take damage from both of the units he's attacking, so he's most likely going to suicide by doing so. But Darth Maul has other advantages. He deals 5 to both units. You get to trigger the ability even if he doesn't survive the attack. So if he attacks a big unit, he can still deal 5 damage to another unit. And he's force, which is a big deal. He's also 5'6" instead of 5'5". I think it's a good ECL target, but it is quite situational, because obviously the opponent needs to have like 2 relatively large unit, two ground units to make it work. But in a set where there's going to be a lot of small units, then I can see that small going to be quite good. So I give it a try. It's really going to depend on the meta, and then I could see Maul being in a sort of in a force deck, in a black, red, green force deck with ECL. Could see play. And this brings me to my exclusive spoiler. So this was the surprise I was telling you about earlier. So I was given by Fantasy Flight Game, an exclusive card to show you guys. So nobody, this card has not been shown anywhere else. So obviously I'm gonna read it to you. The card is called Unnatural Life. This is a 3 resources event with a 4 straight. It requires cunning and villainy, and it says play a unit that was defeated this phase from your discard pile. It costs 2 resources less and enters play is ready. At the start of the regular phase, defeat it. So, and it's a rare. And it's a card number 189 out of 257. So, what can we say about this? So, when I see this card, I immediately compare it to Sneak Attack. So, Sneak Attack, if you remember, costs 2 resources, as only a cunning requirement is not tied to villainy or heroism, and allows you to play a unit from your hand, and that unit will cost 3 less. And then it will have to defeat at the start of the regular phase. So the advantage of Unnatural Life over Sneak Attack is that it's not doing card advantage. So with Sneak Attack, you need the Sneak Attack, and then you need the card that you're putting in play with Sneak Attack, both in hand. While Unnatural Life, the cards can be in the discard. So Unnatural Life has the advantage of not provoking card disadvantage, which is, it's relevant. It's not a massive deal because in Star Wars Unlimited, drawing 2 cards per turn means the card disadvantage is not really that big of a deal. The other advantage of Unnatural Life is that if you're playing a deck that's self-mill, like an Afra deck, or if you're playing a deck that simply discard cards naturally throughout the game, like a Kylo deck, then you're likely to have a bigger discard pile than you have than your hand. Your discard pile is likely to be bigger than your hand. Therefore, the selection that you get is likely going to be better. So you're gonna have like a wide amount of choices of what card you can bring back with Unnatural Life compared to Sneak Attack. So those are like the 2 major advantages. The second one, granted, it really depends on what kind of deck, but assuming you're playing this card in a specific deck. One of the advantages of Sneak Attack. Well, Sneak Attack, as of course, can be played in a much wider amount of decks because it doesn't require a discard engine. It doesn't require a self-mill engine. And it also can work for both villainy and heroism. The other major advantage of Sneak Attack, and I think that's probably the biggest advantage, like, is obviously cheaper. It costs 2, and it reduces the cost of your unit not by 2 but by 3. So and then there's the final disadvantage of Unnatural Life over Sneak Attack. Sneak Attack, you can kind of like choose the right moment for you to play Sneak Attack. Unnatural Life can only be played on a card that was defeated this phase, which is a huge downside. So here's my opinion about this. In my opinion, if Unnatural Life could be played on any card in your discard, not necessarily something that was defeated that turn. Oh yeah, never mind. So yeah, I actually said absolute bullshit. Sorry. So yeah, this card does not work with Kylo Ren. So basically, that doesn't work with Kylo Ren, doesn't work with Afra, because the unit that would be put in discard pile would not have been defeated. They would have just been discarded. So actually, yeah, this card does not work at all with Afra and Kylo. And I think this line over here completely kills the card. I think if you didn't have this line to play, I think this card could be quite playable. It wouldn't be insane, but it would be quite playable in certain decks. The fact that this line is here completely kills the card. So unfortunately, I think this card is absolutely unplayable. I cannot imagine a world where you would want to see. I mean, of course, you can take people by surprise and do some cool stuff, but you can do the exact same thing with Sneak Attack. The fact that it does provoke cards, it's just way too narrow. The fact that the unit has to have been defeated that turn is just such a bummer. So I hope I'm wrong about this card, because it's a card I spoiled. I always have a certain emotional attachment to a card that I've spoiled. I was very happy to see that Pillage ended up seeing a lot of play, but unfortunately I have to be truthful to you guys. And in all truth, I think this card is, I don't see this card seeing any play. But I love the artwork. The artwork is great. So, and that's it for this video. Thank you so much for following the video. And I'll see you next time. I'll continue to do some spoiler analysis for Twilight of the Republic until the new set comes out. And until then, have a nice day and see you next time.